What's up everybody, welcome back to Swine and Bovine Barbecue. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make some Texas style spare ribs. So let's get going. So we're going to start trimming on the back side of the spares. It's got this skirt flat meat right here. We're going to take this off. And everything I'm trimming here is going to be saved, from a meat perspective, will be saved for sausage. We're going to take this breastbone off right here. So you want to have a nice knife because there is some cartilage in there you'll need to cut through. That's why I go with the chef knife versus my normal trimming knife on this. But got that off, you can see all the cartilage in there. Simply enough, we're seasoning these with kosher salt and 16 mesh black pepper. Just going on with a nice coating on the back side here of salt, and come over the top with some coarse black pepper. Flip it over and repeat. Healthy coating of kosher salt. Get your sides, get the back of the rib. Come over the top with some pepper. Get the sides with the pepper as well. Our ribs are nice and seasoned up, so let's go fire up the pit. Our pit is cruising along at around 250 degrees, which is where we want to smoke these, between 250 and 275. So, gonna put the ribs right on the center here. We'll come check on them in 2 or 3 hours. Once the bark is set, we'll start hitting them with our spritz. Full-size spare ribs. These are a staple at Texas barbecue joints, not just here in Texas, but across the country. Usually seasoned with just salt and pepper, sometimes sauced, sometimes not, to let the pork flavor shine through. The method I'm going to show you today is my preferred way of doing it. It's certainly not a rule. Other people do it completely different, but starting off with the same base of a full-size great pork spare rib, salt, pepper, but I like a little sweet and I like a little heat with mine, so I'm going to show you how I do that today. 3 hours in and our ribs are looking really good. We're gonna flip these over for the time being. Our bark is pretty set on the top here, but we're gonna flip them over, let this back side get some color. I'll leave the membrane on when I cook on my offset, so gonna crisp it up a little bit. Do this for an hour or so, then we'll flip them back over meat side up and start spritzing them. As mentioned earlier, I like sweet heat on my ribs, so our spritz is gonna reflect that. We're gonna use Louisiana hot sauce in the spritz and some maple syrup. Now we're not gonna make it too sweet, not scolded by your dentist sweet, but it's gonna have a little bit in there, that way you get a nice sweet heat. So let's dump our hot sauce into the bottle. Brought the fat boy, needed some more. Not really going by measurements here. We'll taste it and adjust as needed, and I recommend you do the same. If you like it really sweet, add a lot of maple syrup. If you don't like it sweet at all, don't use it. If you like it sort of sweet like me, just add it until it tastes good to you. So we're gonna try that amount first, see how it shows. Give our spritz bottle a shake. Not the classiest thing in the world, but this is how I taste spritzes. It's perfect. Let's go spritz the ribs. The back side of our ribs are looking great. So we're gonna flip these back over. Top side's looking pretty dadgum good too. Just give them a spritz, their hot sauce and maple syrup mix. We'll come back and spritz every 15-20 minutes, something like that, until they're ready to wrap. About an hour and a half and 4 or 5 spritzes later, our ribs are ready to wrap. Now, one thing I am a little worried about with these, and it's mainly just the way these ribs were marbled and the fat in them, is right here where there was some fat and right along there. It's not as dark as I'd want. I'm worried that the bark will wash away a little bit in the wrap. So I'm gonna try and keep them wrapped as little as possible. We're starting to get some flex in the ribs, but there's still some tenderness that needs to happen. So we'll do that in the wrap, and hopefully it doesn't wash away too much of our bark here in the center, as it's not set as much as we like because of that fat. For a wrap, pretty simple. Same ingredients as a spritz, plus 3 pats of butter. So that's roughly 3 tablespoons of butter. Then we'll go on with some hot sauce. And then we'll come over the top with a line of maple syrup. And that, plus the moisture that the ribs will let out when they're in the wrap, will be plenty to keep these nice and moist. So we got our ribs. We're gonna put them meat side down, right on top of our goodness. Simply enough. Wrap them up. Have 2 pieces of aluminum foil. Just wanna wrap it up nice and tight. Got our ribs wrapped up, gonna put them back on the pit. We'll check them in about an hour or so and see if they're to tenderness, ready to pull, rest, and then eat. About 50 minutes later, and our ribs are nice and tender, temping around 203 to 205, a little hotter than I typically get them. Usually just go to 203, but they're nice and tender, so we're gonna pull them, let them rest, then we'll slice into them. Our ribs have been sitting on the counter. They're below 140 degrees now, so let's slice into them, taste them, see how we did. Normally I would just lift the rack up and dump all the fat and everything in there with it, but it's got a lot, so I'm just gonna tip them over this way. You know what? Let's just do it anyways. Let's just dump them out like we typically would. Get some of this all over it. Oh yeah. Those are some good looking ribs. Nice red color, a little dark over here on this end. Not the end of the world, but very pretty. And as you can see, this little band right here that I was worried about where there was some extra fat, we did lose a little bit of bark in the wrap there, but not the end of the world. They are still some really good looking pretty ribs. So let's go ahead and slice into them, bite into them, see how we did. For slicing ribs, I like to flip them over. It's much easier to find the bones. Spare ribs can go at funky angles, so I've never been good at guessing when it comes to those angles. So I just flip them over, slice them this way. You can see how they start to angle like this. So over here, you're slicing this way versus over here, you know, you're pretty much perpendicular. So slice them up. Good looking ribs to me. Except for that part. That part upsets me. Oh well, nothing I can do about it. Hard part's done. Time to dig in. Go with a big meaty boy. Cheers. Really, really good. Simple flavor. They're not spicy. Despite all the hot sauce that we put onto them, you'd think they would be pretty hot. Not really that spicy, but they've got a hinge of the vinegar from the hot sauce, a little bit of that hot sauce taste, but not overpowering. Not like you'd think it would be with spritzing it plus wrapping it with it. But they're just really good. It's a salt and pepper you get along with a great pork flavor, a little bit of sweetness, but not too much. It's really just letting a quality pork product shine along with a little itty bitty bit of heat and sweetness. It's really good. Yeah, these are good ribs. Not too much to it as well. I mean, these, you probably could have let them go unwrapped if this end wasn't starting to get darker because of the middle situation with the little bit of extra fat that we had. But, you know, then you wouldn't get a little bit of the richness and sweetness and vinegar that you get with the wrap. But very good, super moist, coming off the bone nice and clean. Tender, but not too tender. Bite it off the bone. There's a little bit of a bite to it, not hardly anything, but enough to keep it on the bone. That way it's not shredding and falling apart in your hands. You can still eat it with one hand. Do a little close up here, some of the moisture that's in these ribs. Nice and moist. So much so that I'm getting it on the floor. Wife's gonna kill me. Can't recommend giving these ribs a shot highly enough. Super simple, ribs, salt, pepper, hot sauce, maple syrup, and butter. That's all we used. If you want to wrap with barbecue sauce, feel free. I've done it in the past too and it works great. Adds a different flavor and some different complexities to it. But this is super simple. It's really letting the salt and pepper and pork shine through. You don't, like I said, get that much heat from it or an overwhelmingly amount of sweetness. You probably get a little bit more of the vinegar from the hot sauce in it than anything, which is great. I love that. It's a nice little tang to go along with it. Salt, fat, acid, and heat, right? You got all that compounded within this rack of ribs, and they're really, really good. So if you give this recipe a shot, please tag me on Instagram. My handle is @SwineandBovineBBQ. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like it, please subscribe. I release videos every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Central Time. But thank you for watching this one. I appreciate your time. We'll see you in the next one.